complete the applications, the easiest way to do it for the most part is to use Common App. But I'm sure most of you have heard of Common App by now. It is a website that is one application. It's a pretty comprehensive application, but you can apply to multiple schools using just that one application. So the student goes on, they fill out the application, and then they can click off the schools that they want to apply to. Okay, so that's the best way in order to do the application. The next thing they should be doing is completing the counselor data packet. Hopefully you guys have seen that at this point. It's posted on our Google Classrooms. There is a spot in there for you guys, and we're going to get a little bit more into this. This is just kind of an overview of what we're going to do, so don't worry, I'm going to kind of explain more of this as we go along. Also, they're going to ask 2 teachers for letters of recommendation, link their Common App and Naviance accounts, and then forward their standardized test scores to the schools they are applying to. Okay, so selecting the schools. I can't stress this enough. Please, please, please let this be your child's choice. Of course, you can give them some parameters. A lot of times parents will say, you know, I don't care where you go as long as it's within a 4-hour driving distance of Fairlawn, or whatever your stipulation on that is. But please know that if your child is not invested in the school, the likelihood of them having a good experience and not wanting to come home after first semester is not that great, okay? So even though you might have aspirations for them, remember that they're the ones that are going to be there. So it's really important that you guys have open communication and have lots of conversations around what they want, the type of school they want to go to, where they want to go to. And obviously financial issues are a big thing. I always encourage students to wait until they get those financial aid packages, because you might look at a school that they really want to go to and say, $50,000, are you crazy? No way, we can't afford that. But depending on whether it's a private school and they would give some money, or what your financial situation is after filling out the FAFSA, they would get scholarships. I always say don't cross it off the list just yet. See what happens, see how much money you wind up getting, and then you guys can obviously have a more realistic conversation once those things come in. Okay, so campus visits. When you're going to visit, and you should never, ever, ever let your child commit to a school until they have visited. So while I know that it's very difficult to try to visit all these schools that they're applying to maybe ahead of time, they should never go, commit, send a deposit to a school unless they have been there. And for very kind of common sense reasons that you might not even think of. I kind of tell this story, I need to find a new one because I'm getting tired of it myself. But I have a student, this was probably, 10 years ago maybe at this point, that wanted to go to Penn State. Loved Penn State, lived, breathed since she was a kid, wanted to go to Penn State. Her family rooted for Penn State, that was their whole sports thing, whatever. She, I think, had been there, but like for sporting events, not to actually like see the school, experience what it would be like to be a student there. So she went, she got in, she went, she was so excited. She emailed me a month and a half later and said, Mrs. Mayo, how do I go about getting my transcript sent to, and she gave me a list of schools. And I said, what? You're leaving? You wanted to be at this school so bad. How can you be coming home? The food in the cafeteria was so bad that she literally lost 15 pounds. I'm sure you've heard of the freshman 15. You're supposed to gain 15 pounds, not lose it. So she was actually so sick from the food that she wasn't able to eat, and she had to come home. So I tell you that story just to kind of exemplify, like, those are the things that you won't figure out until you go there. Eat in the cafeteria. See what the bathrooms are like. Some kids can't handle the fact that they're going to be sharing a bathroom with maybe an entire floor of students. Okay? It's really, really important to do that. Talk to other students while you're there. And then, always kind of take little notes for yourself if you are going to a bunch of schools, and just jot things down, because they can kind of get mixed up in your head and it's hard to remember what was what. Okay, as I kind of mentioned before, we do have college representatives that visit Fairlawn. Students can come to see them by signing up through Naviance. They all have instructions about how to do this. I encourage students to do this even if they are applying already to these schools. So for example, if you know that, if your son or daughter knows that they're going to be applying to Rowan, but Rowan is coming to visit, I encourage them to still come to that college visit, because the representative that will be reading their application is the representative usually that's coming to do this visit. So what's nice about that is that they get some face time with your child. And colleges do track interests. So every time your son or daughter reaches out, goes on a campus tour, gathers some sort of, it goes to an open house, does the college visit here, the colleges are tracking that information, because you have to remember, as much as you are applying to go to them, they want to offer acceptance to students that they think are going to come to their school and commit. Because at the end of the day, they want to, fill their spots and get everybody's money. So the more that you show interest, the more that you are interested in the school, the better chance that they will be willing to offer a spot. Okay? Okay, so a few things that we kind of talked about a little bit last year, but I just want to put on your radar again this year. There's 3 terms when we talk about the types of schools that your children should be applying to, and that's reach, target, and safety. And those categories kind of are just what they sound like, right? So a reach school is a school whose academic profile is a little bit or a lot of it out of reach for your child based on their academic profile. So for example, the Ivies. I don't care who in this room has a 4.5 GPA and a 1,500 other SATs, the Ivies are a reach. You have to be a special kind of someone, do something very special to be able to get into an Ivy. Okay, they are reach schools for everyone. A target school is a school whose profile, the academic profile, kind of matches what your child is. So let's say the average student that they admit has a 3.5 GPA and 1,200 on their SATs, and your son or daughter has a 3.4 and a 1250. Okay, that is what a target school is. And then a safety school is exactly the opposite of a reach school. That's a school where they'll likely get in because their profile is greater than the average student. We typically say students should apply to about 5 or 6 target schools, 1 or 2 reach schools if they want to. They definitely don't have to, but they do have to have a safety school. Okay, and those numbers are not absolute. They don't have to have 5 or 6. Every year I have students that say, Mrs. Mayo, I'm applying to Rutgers, and if I don't get in, I'm going to go to Bergen for 2 years. Great, that's totally fine with me. Okay, you do have to have a safety school, you don't have to have a reach school, and you do need to have some schools in that target range. I will tell you now, my students and my parents, I will not let you apply to 20-something schools. That's ridiculous. There is no reason to apply to that many schools. Every application costs money. Every time you send in test scores, it costs money. And there's no way that your son or daughter would be happy going to 20-something plus schools. That means they haven't really done their research to figure out what schools they really want to go to. Okay, so this is why the research is important, and this is why you really need to make sure that you're honing down that list before you even start the process. I just kind of talked about that. Okay, so applications, again, I was telling you before how the common application is the best way to kind of go because it's one comprehensive application and then you fill out the information and kind of select the schools that you want to apply to. Some schools will have their own, and certain types of schools, like the SUNY schools and things, have their own application. But for the most part, the majority of the schools that your children are going to apply to will be on common. Okay, when the schools, let me think of how to word this. Okay, so there's 2 different kind of ways to look at the process, right? Common App is one side of this. Common App is the side that your son or daughter is responsible for. That's where they're inputting all of their information. They're filling out Common App. They're filling out the application. Naviance is going to get married to Common App, and Naviance is where the transcript and all of the letters of recommendation will go. So in order for your counselor to be able to send all of those things out through Naviance, your child will need to link their accounts to one another, right? They're going to get married. Because they're getting married, all of the colleges that are on Common App will then need to be added to Naviance under colleges I'm thinking about. And I just want to highlight this because every year I have parents or students freaking out because they can't add the colleges into colleges I'm applying to on Naviance. You can't do that. We have to do that, okay? You can only put the colleges into colleges I'm thinking about, and And then once your child meets with their counselor and we go over the list, we will then move them into colleges I'm applying to. That's how all of their supplemental documents get sent out, okay? Okay, one major thing I want you guys to know about decision deadlines, and we've really kind of owned this point with your children, is that early decision is a legally binding decision. You can only apply to one school early decision, and the majority of your kids shouldn't apply to anywhere early decision. So early decision means that regardless of what it costs to go to that school, if you are accepted, you are going to go. So if there's a $70,000 price tag on that tuition, and you are accepted into the school and you don't get financial aid, you are bound to go to that school. Why in the world would anybody want to do this? The benefit of early decision is that if you're like my kid who really wanted to go to Penn State her whole life, and maybe you don't have the grades or the scores to get in, this puts you in a smaller applicant pool, meaning that your chances of getting accepted into the school are better because there's less competition in that application pool. But again, if you are accepted, you are bound to that agreement, okay? Early action, not to confuse with early decision, is a great deal. Any schools that have early action, your kids should do it because, again, it's going to put you in a smaller applicant pool, although now I feel like everyone kind of does early action, so I don't know how small that is, but you get an answer sooner and you're not bound to that. So you can apply early action, get a decision, and still wait for the rest of your responses to come in and make a decision on where you want to go, okay? Regular decision is just what it sounds like. That's their regular decision date. That's when your applications have to be submitted by. That's when they stop accepting applications. And remember, college deadlines are not flexible deadlines. If their deadline is November 1st, their deadline is November 1st. And if applications and materials are not submitted by 11:59 p.m. on November 1st, it doesn't matter what sob story you call the college and tell them, they don't care, okay? It's a deadline. So again, we reinforce to the kids, don't wait. Don't wait until November 1st. Get everything in 2 weeks early. Always plan for worst case scenarios so that, God forbid, there's an issue, we have plenty of time to remedy it. And honestly, I haven't really seen that being a problem over the years. Rolling admissions, that just means that the school makes decisions as they get applications. So there's not one hard and fast deadline. It means the school is just kind of accepting the applications and they're making decisions as they get those applications. Okay, letters of recommendation. So you will need to have, your child will need to have 2 teacher letters, 1 counselor letter. They are not allowed to have more than 2 teacher letters. They're not allowed to cherry pick their letters. They're not allowed to see their letters. They are going to ask the teachers that they want to write for them. They're going to go to their counselor and say, okay, Mr. Jesus said he would write me a letter. The counselor is going to give your child the form. They will fill out the form, bring it back to the counselor. The counselor will sign off on it, give it to the teacher. The teacher will then write the letter. The best way to figure out which teachers make the most sense, if you don't know, is have a conversation with the counselor. But also think about, what do I want somebody to write about? What am I going to study in college? Who would make sense, right? If I'm going to go and I want to study physics or I want to be a biologist, it wouldn't really make as much sense to get an English teacher to write the letter, right? A math or a science teacher would be better. On the flip side, if you have a teacher that really knows your child, that has worked really closely with them, or maybe they overcame some type of adversity. Maybe it was a class where they started out and they really weren't the best student and they turned it around. It's easy to look at a transcript and read grades and see how wonderful a student performs. Colleges are really looking for personal stories and things about the student that they wouldn't have learned just by looking at their transcript. So be really thoughtful and intentional about who's writing those letters. Okay, so the counselor recommendation packet consists of 4 different aspects. Like I said before, hopefully you guys have seen this by now because you have a part in that. So there is a student self-assessment where the students need to answer the questions. There's a parent brag sheet. This is the opportunity you've all been waiting for. We want you to brag about your child. Brag away. Tell us all the things that are amazing about them, because a lot of times they don't. They'll tell us the easy things, the awards they got, the sports game that they, got a honorable mention or something. But we want to know the good stuff. We want to know the things that nobody would know except mom or dad, or grandma or grandpa, or older brother or sister, and honestly, we don't care who fills it out as long as it's somebody who's going to brag about them. Okay, so please, give us all the information. Don't hold back. This is the time. The third thing that we need is a resume. This doesn't have to be formalized. It really is just a list of activities of what they've been involved in since they started high school. Because a lot of times we know about the big things, right? We know about the big sports that they're doing, or maybe the clubs. But sometimes there's some other stuff we didn't know about, volunteer work that they were doing, maybe a job that they have outside of school. So all of that information needs to go on the resume. And the last thing has to be the transcript release form. This just gives us permission to send the transcripts out to the colleges. It has to just be signed off by you guys and your child, okay? Those packets are due to us 2 weeks prior to their first deadline. I tell all my kids, get them in now. Start sending them in. Don't wait. Because we each have about 80 seniors, so you can imagine we're writing almost 80 letters. By the time we get to number 80, we're running out of days today. So get them in. Get them in sooner while we're fresh and we're excited and we're, typing away there so that we can start working on those letters down. Okay, I kind of went over the teacher recommendation policy and the way to do it. The only thing that I forgot to mention about the teacher recommendations is that once the form has been filled out, the student also needs to invite their teacher onto Naviance. So remember, Common App is solely for the student to fill out the application. Naviance is where all the supplemental materials go. Transcript, counselor letter, letters from your teachers. So the teachers have to be invited onto Naviance so that they can upload that letter of recommendation. And again, this is also, I know this is a lot, I know, don't panic. This is why we meet with the students, and they can't just put things into colleges I'm applying to. Because when we meet with them, we go over all of this. We look, make sure the teachers have been invited, so their letters are there. We make sure this is all done the way it's supposed to be.
Just to go back to the letters of recommendation for the teachers, make sure you're giving the teachers at least 4 weeks notice. So if you have a November 1st deadline, please be courteous of their time. They are not obligated to write you a letter, they're doing it because they want to. So just be mindful of that and give them enough notice. So on to the common application. So as Ms. Mayo said, this is one application that is applicable to multiple colleges. There's over 1,000 colleges that are on the Common App, so it really makes it a lot easier. What's nice about filling out the Common App is that you can organize your deadlines on there. As you start to add the colleges into the college section on Common App, you can specify which deadline you're applying to, so it makes you nice and organized, and it will give you updates as deadlines are approaching. So like Mrs. Mayo said, the two of them are going to connect, so you will eventually connect your Naviance with your Common App. So in order to do so, we have step-by-step instructions. So there's a couple things that need to be completed on the student's end of the Common Application before you can link them to Naviance. So one of them is the education section. So your student needs to input that they go to Fairlawn High School, so that needs to be complete. They also need to read and sign the FERPA, so that is under the college section. So on the Common App, there's going to be like a dashboard of your profile. There's all different check marks that you need to fill out. On the left-hand side, there's going to be a tab that says Add Colleges. As you add the colleges on Common App, that's where you're going to see the FERPA. So the FERPA is just a release of authorization, so it's just allowing us to send information on behalf of your students. You also need to add those colleges and Naviance under colleges I'm thinking about. So once you do those 3 steps, you can then log back into your Naviance account, and then you click on colleges I'm applying to, and then click on match accounts. It sounds complicated, but it is very simple. If it's not working, just go back to those 3 steps and make sure you completed all that information. And the Common App website, I don't know if you can see it up there, but it's commonapp.org. It's a free website to use. I recommend using an outside email. Don't use your school email. A lot of times the server could block certain messages that students get, so make sure you use a personal email just in case a college is trying to contact you. Okay, so on Common App, there's something that's newer within the past few years. So they have something called direct admissions now. So this is based on certain criteria that your student would put in. So it could be GPA, a certain income. There's, I think for each school it depends on like your demographic. Really, like whatever criteria that you put in, you could be eligible for what's called direct admissions through certain schools. Each school, each participating school has their own criteria, and students will receive notice if, one of the schools that they're applying to has this direct admissions, and if they want, they can accept the offer, and all they will have to do is just submit their application. And there's more information on that website as well. So for non-Common App schools, the majority of schools that your students will be applying to are on the Common App. For some that are not, you would just simply go to their website and fill it out. So on the Common App, as I was explaining earlier, you would just go to the Add Colleges section. If you type in a school and it doesn't appear, that means chances are it's just on their website. So you would just go to their website and fill it out. Even if the school is not on Common Application, the majority of schools will still accept electronic documents, so we're not going to be mailing anything in anymore. We would still send the necessary documents through Naviance, the letters of recommendation and the transcripts. So submitting your SAT scores. So a lot of colleges are testing optional. It really depends on the school, it depends on the major that the student is applying to, but many are testing optional now. If you want to send your scores, if you are a great test taker, if the school that you're applying to requires test scores, you are responsible, or the student is responsible for sending the test scores. We do not send them to colleges. They have to be officially sent from College Board or ACT. If you are taking an upcoming test in the fall, you can actually send your first 4 schools you can send to are for free. If not, any additional school after that costs money, so just be mindful of that. And even though it is electronic, sometimes it takes a week or 2 for the school to download and process all that information. So if you know for sure that you're going to be sending your SAT scores to a certain college, you would just log on to College Board, click on Send My Scores, and then you can specify which test date you want to send and where you want those sent to. As you add colleges on Common App under each school, you'll see if that is required or not. So just keep in mind too, if you are doing a testing optional school, it's basically, saying to the school, I'm not sending my scores, so you're going to look at maybe my GPA with a little bit, in a little bit more depth. They might look at your letters of recommendation more because they're kind of missing that piece. If it's testing optional though, you're not going to be penalized. I know sometimes students worry, like, are they going to want my test scores? Don't overthink it. If you feel that your test scores represent you as a student, if they fall within that average accepted range of other, students that were accepted, then you can send your scores. The benefit of sending your scores sometimes is that you're eligible for certain merit or scholarship awards, so just keep that in mind. So back to the resume, I know Ms. Mayo mentioned it before. As a part of the counselor data packet, we require students to give us a resume. What I tell all my students, it's really helpful to have one anyway, even aside from us needing it for your letter of recommendation. You're going to need a resume when you go to college, when you're applying for internships for jobs. We also require a resume later on in the year for the scholarships that we give out through the community. So, we tell students it's anything that you've done from freshman year up until this point. If you've joined clubs, if you played a sport, if you've had a job outside of school, anything to kind of highlight what you do other than come to school all day. So a big piece of the application is the writing of the college essay. So many students over the summer, that was their English assignment, most of students have their essay done already. It really is a big piece of the application. When colleges are looking at students, they see kind of just numbers on a page, right? The essay is an opportunity for you to really, showcase yourself, differentiate yourself from other students. Use personal detail. You have to keep it within the range, the minimum, I think it's 650 word limit, so you have to keep it in there. Don't use chat or any other AI to write your essay. Although the Common App, they might not have a tool to detect that. Other colleges might, so just keep that in mind. I know your English teachers, are happy to read it over and help you guys. So really take that seriously. It is a big piece of the application. That goes right in the Common App. There's a section that's called Writing. That's where you're going to copy and paste your essay right in there. In addition to the college essay, as you add schools, some schools may have their own set of questions that they want you to answer. Some are as short as, a paragraph. Some schools, depending, on the school, they might have like a whole other additional essay that you have to write, okay? So NCAA, so any student who plans to participate in a Division I sport or Division II must register through the NCAA Eligibility Center. So you have to do that. That's the student's responsibility. I believe Mr. Catella gets a notice of all the students that are registered, and we will send those transcripts, but that is the student responsibility to do. Now the FAFSA, so that's the free application for federal student aid. That becomes available on October 1st to fill out. The big thing to keep in mind is a free application. Don't pay to fill that out. The website is studentaid.gov. Starting with the class of 2025, it is now a graduation requirement that you must complete the FAFSA for the New Jersey alternate financial aid application in order to graduate, regardless of financial aid. The form for that will be posted in the Genesis parent portal for you to indicate whether you want to waive that or if you're going to be submitting the FAFSA. So on Naviance, a nice feature of Naviance is as you look for schools, each set of schools will have kind of an overview. One of the tabs on that overview is costs, and it will give you an estimated family contribution based on your income. So I know it's kind of hard to see, but you can put in your family income and it will give you the average net price of what that school will cost. So it just kind of gives you a nice idea. Again, you're going to fill out the FAFSA in October. You're going to add all of the colleges that you're going to be applying to in the FAFSA. You can always go back in and edit it and add more schools if you wish, but you won't find that information out until later in the year. Sometimes it takes a few months for the schools to process that information and to send you the award letter. So this just kind of gives you an idea, though, this is how much our family makes, this is how much the school costs, what am I roughly going to be paying? So again, that is on Naviance. So Going Merry is a free website for students to use. It's a platform where students can input their data, and Going Merry will match your student to different scholarships that they may be eligible for based on the criteria that they put in. There are national, regional scholarships. There's also opportunities for every grade level for students to fill it out. So we encourage students to do this, even if it's a couple $100 or $1,000, it could help pay for books. So definitely take advantage. There are so many different websites out there. We listed all of them, I think on the next slide, of all the different ways for you guys to help pay for college. So I recommend that you try and use that website. the general scholarship application becomes available in January. So this is for Fairlawn students on their Google Classroom, their class of 2026 Google Classroom. Ms. Velasco will post this information in January. We also post it on our Google Classroom, so it's super important for students to be checking that. Every year we give out thousands of dollars to students, and in order for us to nominate you and the committee to select students, you have to fill out the application. If you don't fill it out, we cannot nominate you, so this is a really great opportunity for students. It's not just academic scholarships either. We give out money for students who maybe play certain sports, maybe they completed curriculum in the business department. So there's lots of opportunities that you have to make sure you fill it out. Again, that's available later on in January. We also have the local scholarships, which are separate from the general scholarship. That's available to our graduating seniors. The deadlines for that vary. That's usually later on in the winter and early spring, but we will be reminding students in Google Classroom. So again, I can't stress this enough how important it is for students to be checking that.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some alternate plans just to kind of put out there the other things that are available. I do just want to say though, I know again this is a lot of information. The application process seems overwhelming if this is your first child going to college. Just know that if you kind of follow step by step, you can access this presentation. You can look on our Google Classrooms, the packet that we gave your summer donor. You can see on there that everything is literally step-by-step directions. If you just help them walk through this, and notice I say like help them, you shouldn't be doing this. You should not be filling out their applications. The only thing you should be doing is filling out the FAFSA. They should be filling out the applications and doing that part on their own. So we know it can be overwhelming. That's why we have all the tools that we do. So if you really do just kind of follow through all of those packets, the information is there, and it should make it a little bit more manageable for you. But just some other things that we wanted to mention tonight, because not everybody is going to be applying to four-year schools. There are other opportunities, and even if you are applying to four-year schools, but you're not 100% sure that that's the path that your child is going to take, Bergen Community is one of my favorite options just because it's an amazing community college and it's right in our backyard, and it's a fraction of the cost of what four-year colleges cost. And I feel like over time now, it used to be that only a percentage of students would go to college and everybody else kind of either went into the workforce or went a different route. Now it's kind of the opposite. It's flipped and everybody's going to college. So you're not just going for a four-year degree at this point, right? If you want to really be able to advance in your career and make sure you get a job somewhere, you're likely going to be looking at a master's degree program or a doctorate even, or some higher degree status. So I always enforce to my students, there is nothing wrong with starting at Bergen Community College just to save money. Simply just to save money. The first 2 years are going to essentially be the same no matter where you are. You're going to be doing all your gen ed requirements, you're going to be getting all of those out of the way. So Bergen's a great place to start to do that. The other thing is if students don't really have the GPA and test scores to get into some of the more prestigious universities that they want to get into, if they go to Bergen and do well, nobody cares what you did in high school anymore. They don't look at your high school transcripts. They only look at the transcripts from Bergen. So I just think it's a really good idea to keep it on your radar, especially, like I said, from a financial standpoint. It's a great deal. Another option that we have for students that might want to go to Bergen is the NJ STARS program. So this is actually across the state. Any student that is in the top 15% of their class is eligible to get free tuition to Bergen. So this is something that they would be reaching out to you directly about if your child falls into that top 15% of their class. But they would get free tuition directly through this program. You're eligible based on either the GPA at the end of your junior year, or they do it again after graduation. They can recalculate the GPA. So if they were just short of hitting that 15%, and then by the end of senior year they make it, they can also qualify from there. Trade schools, this is really something I'm super passionate about and something that we as a department have been really trying to get more involved in over the last couple of years, just because of the experiences that we've had in visiting some of these trade schools and hearing about the desperate need that they have for students to come and work. And the amount of money that these kids are making after an 18-month program is more than I'm making. So, I mean, I think that this is a dying thing, and we're always going to need plumbers and electricians and mechanics and welders and all these things that these trade schools provide, and a lot of students don't even think of that, but you know your child. If they are not really like a classroom-based learner and they like to, do things that are hands-on, this is a really good thing to explore, because like I said, not only are they really looking for people, and there's a school called Universal Technical Institute right in Bloomfield, and they do a lot of like car mechanics stuff, diesel engines and things, and they have recruiters from Audi, BMW, all of these prestigious, car dealerships, like begging them for their people, giving them sign-on bonuses, buying their tools, because in today's world, the computers and everything in these cars are just getting more and more complex. They need to know that the people they're hiring are trained to work on those things, so they're paying them top dollar. So again, just something we wanted to put out there to think about, because I don't think that there's always a straight path from A to B. So sometimes for you, like I said, you know your child, and if they're more of a hands-on learner, then this might be a good option for them. Military options, I am our military liaison here. So if your child is interested in any branch of the military, they can come and see me, and I can have a recruiter come to the school to meet with them about that. I promise you they will not sign anything. That is why I am there. They sit with them, and it's really just like an information session just to get some information. And if they're interested, then they would set something up with you as the parent, and you would go to the recruiting office and get more and more information about that. But if you are interested in any of the military branches, please reach out to me and I can make that connection for you. Okay, just a reminder, as you're working through this, make sure your children double check all of their applications. Our CEEB code, which they will ask for, is on the slide here, 310370. As we said at the beginning, keep track of all your deadlines. Typically, whatever the first deadline is when we encourage students to have everything in. Like, so if your child has a November 1st deadline, we're just going to get everything sent out by October 15th for all the schools in one fell swoop so that everything is just done and in. Counselors need at least 2 weeks before the first deadline in order to make sure that everything is in order and that the letters and supplemental materials and all the things get sent out. So we've been telling students, please make sure you email me for an appointment no later than 2 weeks prior. That's like the last drop dead date. Don't wait until that date to get the appointment, but that's the last date that they should be emailing for an appointment. But obviously, the sooner the better. And then most importantly, stay in touch, okay? If you're panicking, if you have questions, if you're just lost, if you just need some reassurance that it's all going to be okay, reach out to your counselor, your child's counselor. We will help you through it. They, again, cannot do anything without an appointment. So they have to see us when everything is done to get all of this sent out. So they have to make that appointment, okay? There is an upcoming, I think we did in the spring, we did a FAFSA presentation last year, which was probably really good and informational for you guys, but now it's like here and you have to do it. So Tuesday, October 14th, it's virtual, so you don't have to come back here again. You can just log on from home on Zoom. We have somebody from HISA kind of do the presentation, talk about the FAFSA a little bit more. It's more geared to like how to fill it out. Like last year, I think it was like kind of the overview of what it's all about. But this year, it'll be a little bit more geared to like now you guys as senior parents, how to fill that out if you're interested. Remember, the FAFSA is free. Don't pay for it. If somebody tells you you have to pay for this application, you're on the wrong website. Go back to the slideshow and make sure you're checking the website. It's a free application. We are also going to have a parent support session for any parent who is just really feeling overwhelmed, especially our parents that maybe are new to the country or just this is their first time and they're feeling really overwhelmed with this whole process. This will be a little bit more intimate and a little bit more one-on-one. It'll just be up in our guidance office. It's going to be Thursday, October 23rd, 6:30. You can just drop in and see your child's counselor, so whichever one of us is your child's counselor. If you're just needing a little hand-holding to kind of walk through this process, or you get to a certain point and you're stuck and you don't know what you're supposed to do next, okay, you can absolutely feel free to drop by that night and we will help you. These are just some useful links of different things that we talked about tonight so that you can go to those websites and reference those things. For those of you who like to read, here are some recommended books for you. Pretty much, this is just to calm you down, okay? This is just to help you understand that no matter what happens, your kids are going to be fine. No matter where they go, no matter what they do, we're all going to be okay, and they're all likely going to end up in the same place, okay? So this is just like a good support so that you can take a breath in this process. And that's it. The next stop is college. So we will take some questions. If anybody has some general questions, if you want to raise your hand, we can kind of walk around and, give you the mic so you can ask.
Which is a lot easier. So as long that's why we tell them they have to meet with us, because that's how we make sure everything gets sent on time and that we're sending what they want sent to their particular school.
We had another question about letters of recommendation, if they had to be from teachers or if they could be from outside people, coaches, bosses, things like that. Typically, they should be from your child's classroom teachers. The college is looking to admit them as students, and that's their primary focus. It's what they are like in the classroom, what their work ethic is like in a school setting. They may be very hardworking at work and go the extra mile and get there early and be motivated by that paycheck, but not so much in the classroom. So that's really who they want to hear from, is their teachers. And ideally it would be their junior year teachers. They've had them the most recently. They've had them for a full year. So that's who we would start with. If they had a teacher in their freshman year, who they also have again now as seniors, that might be a good option. Or a teacher who was also a coach or club advisor, that's a good option sometimes. But again, it should hopefully be their junior year teachers.
The question was, do students already have access to the Common App, or do they have to wait for their counselor? No, the Common Application, the students can do on their own. We recommend creating the application now. It's just commonapp.org. They do not have to meet with us in order to create an account, so we encourage them, if they haven't already done so, to get on and start working on it.
Okay, the question was if the teacher letters of recommendation need to be completed before you send out the applications. No. Your application can go in whenever you're finished, and the rest of the stuff can come in as long as everything is in by the deadline. You're good. It does not all have to be submitted at the same time. On a similar point, I want to stress that if you have a regular decision deadline or an early action deadline, getting your stuff in earlier, it does not give you any advantage. Colleges have that deadline because their admissions representatives are coming to high schools like Fairlawn to visit with kids. They're going on tours, they're recruiting kids. They are not reading applications until that deadline is over. So getting it in on October 1st when you have a December 1st deadline doesn't really give you any advantage for a regular or early action decision deadline. A rolling action decision, there may be an advantage to getting it in early because, like we said, they're just accepting applications as they come in. And at the beginning of the year, they have lots of space. They have 1,000 spots for freshmen. And as you get further on in the year, that number gets smaller and smaller, so they may become more selective. So the rolling admissions decisions are the only ones that it really is an advantage to get your applications in a little earlier.
I just want to add to that because I know that somebody asked Mr. McConville a similar question about if it's okay to hit submit on the Common App before meeting with us. And Mr. Gatilla said it doesn't really matter what gets submitted when. So just kind of think of it as like whatever they get first, they're starting a file. So whether they get the transcript from us first, or whether they get the application from the student first, or whether they get the SAT scores from College Board first, they're starting a file for that student, and not until every component of that file is complete will they then review the application afterwards, after the deadline. So if they submit it on Common App, and then a week later we submit the transcript and the letters, or we submit the transcript and the letters, and a week later they submit the application on Common App, it doesn't matter, as long as it's all in before the deadline.
Someone had a question about a portfolio. So if a student is applying to our school or wants to study film and the school requires a portfolio, on the Common Application, when you specify which major that you're going into, if it is a major that requires a portfolio, it will kind of auto-populate to a different set of questions. Usually the portfolio is done through an application called Slide Room, and they'll have to create an account with that. But again, they would click which major they're going into, and that would populate if it's required.
We had a question about the FAFSA being a graduation requirement. It is, as of last year, with the graduating class of 2025, the state of New Jersey requires that you submit the FAFSA in order to graduate from high school. This is for everyone. It does not matter whether you think you qualify for any financial aid. The state checks that we've told you and made sure that you've all done it. What we did last year, there is a waiver. So if you just really don't want to do it, we would put that through the parent portal on your Genesis account, and it's going to ask you, yes, I submitted the FAFSA, or I'm going to submit the FAFSA, or no, I waive this requirement, I'm not going to do it, and then we would send that to the state indicating whether or not you're going to do it. That thing was acceptable last year, so I think that that's going to be the thing this year.
I know that sometimes I had some families last year that said, no, I'm not going to fill it out, and then later on decided that they were. That's perfectly fine too. Just because you say no at that point in time, if later on you decide, you know what, we're going to apply for financial aid, you can always still go back and fill it out afterwards, even after you've graduated.
Someone had a question about if a student has a professor, the students in the Bergen program, and they want their professor to write them a letter of recommendation, which is perfectly fine. That you can have, but it would not be requested through Naviance. So requesting teachers through Naviance are only for Fair Lawn teachers. If you do want that outside recommender, you would need to request that through Common App. So on Common App, when you add the school, let's say for example you add Montclair State, there's going to be a question that says FERPA and recommenders. That's where you would add the other recommender in, and you would just put their email address, and then they'll get a notification, and then the professor or outside recommender would submit it through Common App. So Naviance is for Fair Lawn teachers, outside recommenders is for Common App.
And if we do have any other families that are in the Bergen Early College program, you are applying as a first-year freshman. You are not applying as a transfer student, even though it kind of feels like you are because you're coming in with an associate's degree. You are applying as a first-year student with college credits. I'm going to meet with the early college students on Monday to go through all of that with them specifically, but just in case there's any parents here also, I don't want them to go home and tell you that and you not believe them. They are first-year students. There was a question about college fairs. There is one coming up in October that I posted on the counseling website under post-secondary planning. So our counseling website is really thorough. It has sections for everything for post-secondary planning, career interests, scholarships. There is a college fair. I can't think of the date off the top of my head, but it's coming up. It is in Bergen County. I want to say it's like October 12th or something like that. Sorry, I can't remember the name, where exactly it is, but it is on our school website.
So someone had a question about the colleges, the
Correct.
colleges I'm thinking about, the colleges you're applying to. So we're not like